what it takes to be a martial arts teacher.
The two things that really go into, not just a martial arts teacher, but any teacher, is you have to have the will and the skill. I think a lot of arrogance comes from insecurity. You know what I'm saying? Like, you guys know a bunch of, serious, like, let's take Mike Swain. What an amazing guy. And I talk about a sincerely nice guy, right? And even having to prove, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so the people that have that come with that arrogance, usually it's because they're not very, and as their confidence improves, their sense of self-worth improves, a lot of that often leaves and dissipates. And that's one of the beauty of martial arts.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Budo Brothers podcast. Now, we have two very special guests on this episode. With us today is Bryan and Dave Kovar from Kovar Systems. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Oh man, we're happy to be here. We appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you, guys. Excellent.
So, as I said earlier, you guys do such clean work, such good work. Your passion shows through. Just keep it up, man.
Oh, appreciate it. Well, we definitely love what we do, and opportunities like this make our job that much more special. So thank you for joining us today. Maybe you could kick us off with a little bit about your background, the systems that you started out in, and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. Quick history. Like when I was about 5 or 6 years old, this would have been, mid 60s. I was living in Montana, and I saw a silhouette of a guy doing a flying sidekick, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. It's kind of like I didn't find martial arts found me. And it was years before, because back then kids just didn't do it. My dad wanted to have nothing to do with it. So I started wrestling in 1971 when I was in 7th grade. And then my older brother, Tim, went away to college and took a year of martial arts and came back and said, you got to let Dave do this. So I started karate in 73. And fortunately, my instructor, a gentleman named Bruce Jutnik, was very open-minded. And this is back in the day where, when you'd meet another martial artist, the first thing you do is ask them what style they were. And based on their answer, you're going to determine if you're going to be friendly with them or not. It was really silly. But that was just the time then. But my instructor was very open-minded about cross-training at an early age. So I kind of started cross-training back in the day, and it's been my passion, and opened up my first school in November of 1978, about 6 months out of high school. So 45 years ago. And going strong. We have a chain of schools now, and love what I do as much as ever. And with me is Bryan. Bryan is a lifetime martial artist that I've had the privilege of knowing. He came to us when he was right about, already as a black belt, when he was like 18 or something. Is that about right?
Yes, sir. About 18, 19 years old. So I started training when I was about 6 years old. I had dreams of becoming a Ninja Turtle. And so I went through a few different programs. Kind of growing up, Taekwondo is really where I kind of came into my own, and that was the art that really resonated. I had a phenomenal instructor there, and he's the one who really introduced me during kind of a time of expansion with the Kovar organization. We kind of came into the fold at that time. So through his decision, that's what brought me into the Kovar's team, and it's been a fun ride since.
Awesome. Well, that's amazing. So for everybody listening, we actually go way back with these two gentlemen. Back when we first got our DSLR cameras and we were cruising around the Martial Arts Supershow, we had the privilege of filming you guys and your guys' company, but also attending one of your seminars. And one of the coolest things about just working with you guys is you teach teachers. You're also lifelong martial artist, but you got so good at that you have perfected the art of teaching people to share this craft and how to do it effectively. And can you talk a little bit about what it takes to be a martial arts teacher? Because I know it's been pretty difficult to even continue a school right now. If you look at the fitness industry where it's been to martial arts, what's it like being a martial arts instructor in today's world right now?
Well, I think that it's a great question, and I would start out with the two things that really go into, and that's just a martial arts teacher, but any teacher, is you have to have the will and the skill. And let me explain what I mean by that. So let's imagine for a moment that you move to a new city and you want to get your 5-year-old daughter in gymnastics, okay? And you look online, you see 2 gymnastics schools, and one of them is an Olympic champion, and you show up because this guy's got the skill, and he's been doing it a long time. He's sitting in the corner of the mat, kind of barking out orders. You can tell he really doesn't want to do this. He's burned out. He's been there, done that. So you go, I don't know about this place. And you go to the place down the street, and it's this young couple that have no, not much athletic experience, but they're super happy. The place is bright. There's a bunch of happy, 5 and 6-year-old girls on the floor doing gymnastics. So there's no right or wrong answer, but which instructor do you bring your daughter to? You probably bring her to the second one, the young kid, the young couple, because they have the will. But unbeknownst to you, you look at one more time online, you find out there's a third gymnastics school that this guy got a silver medal in the Olympics, and you show up and there's a bunch of talented, teenage athletes, but there's also all these happy 6-year-olds doing it as well. Now the choice becomes clear, because what they have is they have both the will, they want to be there, and then the skill to be there. And so that's, for martial arts, that's really sums it up. And when I'm referring to skill, it's twofold. It's number one is being a technician, of course, but having the skill to be able to teach, which is really an acquired. Some people naturally be coming to their own quicker, but there's all kinds of strategies that we share with people that allow them to be a better teacher sooner. And an example of that would be a concept we teach called the SSL rule, which stands for Smiling, Sweat, and Learning. So your goal as an instructor is for your students to show up to class. And smiling doesn't literally mean you're telling jokes. It just means enjoyment of class. They're getting a workout and they're learning something new. So that's your filter when you're teaching class. Where are you on that? And another one is a concept of public praise, private reprimand, to make sure that, hey, when you are giving positive feedback, someone's doing something well, you let everybody know. If they need some correction, maybe you draw that offline a little bit. This is especially important with newer students and younger students. And then another concept is called the 3x3 rule, which means in every class, my goal is to 3 times during class to shout out, to use someone's name, eye contact, and appropriate body contact. Like, hey, Bryan, we even did this during COVID. Hey, Bryan, give me a high five, buddy. Right? So when we were teaching online, but so to try to get to everybody 3 times during class so that they know that we knew they were there. So the list goes on, but that's kind of the process. There's so much more than just being able to teach someone how to throw a jab cross and a lead leg round kick that goes into being able to, sustain someone's joy in training.
Beautiful. Now, when someone has the guts to strike out and start a school, what is the top piece of advice that you would give them?
I really think that when I first opened up, I had no idea ignorance is bliss, right? I had no idea how much went into it. If I did, I would have never opened up a school. I'm glad I did, by the way. But I think that the two things would be, indomitable spirit, literally it's friggin' hard to open up. And number 2 is to get a mentor, somebody that can really guide you and show you the ropes so you don't have to learn stuff yourself. Bryan, any additional thoughts on that?
Just absolutely, that is getting with someone that can help to guide you, and so you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. What I think is really incredible is how over the last several years, really just in my lifetime as a martial artist, is seeing how much the industry has grown and progressed and blossomed, become so much more professional. So there's a lot of just great information that has continued to be shared, and that we're learning from each other. And so there's this great era of martial arts training that just keeps getting better and better. And so you don't have to strike out all on your own. You don't have to come up with the perfect model all by yourself. Is reach out and be part of this incredible community that I think we have. And learn from others, mentor, get with some groups, get with some people that kind of are the same kind of philosophy, not necessarily the same style, but the same philosophy as you. And that makes all the difference in the world.
I really look up to your guys' program and the success it's had and how you guys have been able to build such a giant community. There's 2 big time martial artists that I really looked up to at the last Super Show was Mike Swain and you, Mr. Kovar, because you are both very entrepreneurial, and as young entrepreneurs coming up, it's a difficult route. Entrepreneurship is a difficult route. And so many times we forget to talk about the hardships and maybe some of the failures that we went along the way. Could you discuss with us from your personal journey? Because we see Kovar Systems, we see the community you've created, we see all the instructors and schools under you now. What were some of the hardships that you had to get through on this journey?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We just, as a matter of fact, Bryan and I just got back from a 2-day retreat with a bunch of high level school owners. These guys are really successful, and one of the things we talked about is a lot of you got I call it the Miyagi effect, and that is that as a martial arts instructor, you've got everybody thinks you're Mr. Miyagi. You have all the answers. You got everything figured out. You never have any issues, and that's kind of so. A lot of school owners are kind of isolated because they don't have a lot of people. You're not going to vent to the challenges with your students. You know what I'm saying? And so the challenge is real. And I think this is important because, a lot of times we just see the best of what other people are doing, and you don't see all of the grind that's going on behind the scenes. And I would say there's been plenty of challenges. There's been plenty of times in my career where, I was wondering if this was going to work, how to continue. But I'll share with you, there's 3 types of motivation. And there's desperation, and there's inspiration, and there's purpose. And so desperation, we've all been motivated by holy moly. There's been times where, it's the 4th of the month, rent was due on the 1st, late on the 5th. I've got one more day to come up with the rest of the money. I always found a way. Right? Because you're desperate to do it. But the issue with that type of motivation, it's temporary. After you're no longer desperate, you kind of, the work is hard. And the reverse of that is inspiration. And that's way more fun, right? Well, that's where you go to a seminar or event, or you for whatever reason, you are inspired to go out and do great stuff. But the issue with the inspiration is also tends to be temporary. But purpose, having a real clear reason as to why what you're doing, that sustains you and really allows you to kind of grow through the challenges that are inevitably coming your way. And that's really what's really kind of at the end of the day for me, and I can certainly share some specific challenges, go into as much detail as you want, but for me is I so believe in what martial arts does. I think it has the answer to virtually almost any challenge that someone faces. Let's take kids. You name any challenge that a child's going through, bullying, do we help that? Yes. Obesity, do we help that? Lack of focus, do we help that? Socially awkward, do we help? Go down the list, it doesn't matter. Martial arts has an answer to. And you turn it on to adults, an adult that, maybe the self-defense, confidence factor, do we address that? Yes. Someone get in better shape, do we address that? Yes. The list goes, stress avoidance, like you guys both train, man, there's been times when you didn't feel like training, but you're stressed out. And what do you train for an hour? How do you feel when you're done? Whole nother level. So that's what we bring to our students. So for me, the sustaining factors being really clear with our purpose, why it is what we're doing. And that's always helped me when the going has gotten tough. And we've had it plenty of times. I can think of two really, actually 3 really specific times in my professional career where, back against the wall, fight like crazy to get through it. But, the thing is that wisdom comes from experience remembered. And, there's one thing about having textbook knowledge out of a book that you read, or you got your degree in this, and that's great. But then there's also the wisdom you get from experience, and when things didn't work and the things that you learn, that that's hard to shortcut that.
There's no shortage of challenges when running a school. And I think one challenge that is constantly on instructors' minds is student retention. Now, I know Kovar Systems, your schools have some of the highest retention rates in the industry. And I'm curious what you do differently to retain and nurture your students' martial arts journey. It's
a great question. Bryan, you want to take a crack at it first and I'll add on maybe?
Sure. So, in a lot of ways, right, I think the key to long-term student retention is there's not really a magic bullet, right? The most important piece, I think, is you got to keep things strong here. You got to keep things strong in your heart. You got to keep your passion strong so that you're genuinely caring about your students, because that's what shows through, right? If you're in it because, gosh, I'm really looking at what that revenue looks like every month, and that's the only thing I'm caring about, your retention's frankly probably not going to be all that good because people are going to start feeling like they're a transaction. And so I think the key that I think that makes our school so good is really the incredible team that we have. So one of the things that Ansh Kovar talks about, right, is hire right, train right, treat right. And that's the philosophy he's taken with growing a team. our team of instructors is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we've got the folks that have been on our team for 5, 6, 7 years. They're like the rookies, right? And we've got people that have been several decades with Mr. Kovar, and they're still here because they're passionate about what we do. And so that brilliant in the basics, in reaching out and caring about the students, and taking a genuine interest in making sure that they're seen every single class, every time that they're on the mat, that we're caring about them, saying, I'm so glad to see you today, right? Like, thank you so much for coming in. Is there anything I can do? And being of service. And so that genuine human connection is also what I think really makes martial arts different than a lot of the seasonal sports and other activities. Is it makes us really unique, is we have this long-term arc of caring and growing and mentorship that's part of that process. And so if you keep that strong, if you just keep kind of grinding in the basics of being happy to see them every single time, making sure that they leave smiling, that they learned something, that they had a great time. That's that SSL, that smiling, sweating, learning again. That's, I think, just what makes a critical issue to keeping that long-term retention strong.
And 3 kind of specific things that we try to do, especially with new members. Because remember, if you retention is really good at the beginning, you're going to end up with a lot, over time, that really pays off, right? So if you're great at keeping people, you keep 100% of your students after they've been there for a year, but your retention is terrible up until that point, you're not going to end up with a lot of people there, right? So the more you can keep at the beginning, the more value you can bring to your community. So the 3 things that we really try to do quickly in the program is, number 1 is help new members get in the habit of coming to class. And what that means is we try to be relentless. When people miss classes, the sooner we can reach out, the better. Because, if you've been training, you got a brown that's been training with you for 3, 4 years, and he misses a week or 2, that's not that big of a deal. But when someone brand new started this week or 2, that's the difference. They might be out the door before they even got started. And most people that quit the program early, and that's very common, the first 100 days is when the most people quit, is not because they didn't really like your program. It's because they never got in the habit. They never established the habit. Because right now, let's just say you guys are going to come down and you're going to come to my Monday, Wednesday at 7:00 adult class, okay? And you just enroll. Well, guess what? You're already doing something Mondays and Wednesdays at 7:00, and it may not even be official. Maybe you're playing video game, or walking in the park, or who knows. But you've got to establish this new habit. And so the more I can help you, get in that habit, the sooner the better. And if that becomes after a while, just becomes second nature. So that's number 1. Number 2, we do our best to help our students create what I refer to as a white belt moment. And that's that aha moment that everybody in their training has. They go, wow, I love this stuff. Right. And whatever that might be, it means you have to, first off, be looking when they fill out a form, knowing what it is that they're looking for in their training. That's the first thing. OK. And then doing your best to feed that to them. And then it might be the first time they throw a round kick, and maybe they do it on a piece of X-ray paper, and this makes this loud wow. And it just feels really good. Or the first time that they are effectively hit somebody with a technique in sparring, or they learn a wrist flex. Who knows what it's going to be, but you're trying to cultivate that environment to where they're walking off the mat thinking, wow, I can do this, I'm going to be pretty good. And then the third step is to plant seeds early in training about the importance of long-term training. That's both with kids, if you're teaching kids, and their parents, that the real benefit doesn't come with training for a couple months. It's in the process of a year. So what does that mean? An application that might be that, when I see a parent of an orange belt in the lobby, I'll go, your daughter's going to be with us till she goes away to college, don't you? And there's something magical that happens when a child grows up in a martial arts school. And by the way, there is, and you guys know that. And so, and then another thing is just reminding people early on that, hey, they're going to want to quit, and that's okay. Everybody goes through that. Don't even worry about it. When you feel like that, let us know. Because the romance is going to wear off pretty quickly for a lot of people, and it's going to be becoming a grind. But when you share that with them initially, when it happens, just like Mr. Kovar said, I was going to want to quit. Wow, okay. And we talk about the importance of building the perseverance muscle versus the quit muscle. You don't want a big, strong quit muscle. You want a strong perseverance muscle. And the only way to develop that is wanting to quit something and not, wanting to give up and not. And so you try to pre-frame that before they want to quit, because otherwise you're reactive. So if that makes sense. So those would be 3 really specific key things a school owner could do to help with their retention initially. By the way, there's also the assumption that your classes are rocking.
Yes.
That's kind of that's our product is a good classroom. And it doesn't matter how slick your ads are, how cool your school is, how high tech your equipment is. If your classes are only mediocre, you're going to have a hard time keeping students.
It's always down to the product at the end of the day. So they say some of the best marketing is building a good product. If you have a good product, the marketing becomes very easy after that. Yes. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the martial arts industry itself. You've been in it for quite some time now, and you've probably seen a lot of changes with it. What has the advent of MMA and this new type of BJJ kick, how has that affected schools and school owners? Does everybody have to teach MMA now, or has it all switched up, or what are you seeing right now?
It's a great question. I have a love-hate relationship with MMA, right? And what I mean, but hey, man, I know a lot of those guys. And and I train in multiple disciplines, and we kind of teach MMA, right? And so I love that part. The part that sometimes what I don't like is what the media portrays. Yeah, as far as kind of sometimes it can come off to the untrained eye as kind of a professional wrestling feel, or like extremely violent, which of course we know it can be, right? But the good news, I think that it's brought a certain amount of reality. I think there was a lot more charlatans before the MMA, before, UFC, that there is now. A lot of guys hiding that weren't really legitimate martial artists. And, back in the day, and when I say back in the day, let's just say I opened up in the late 70s. So let's say in the 80s, maybe early 90s, you could be a mediocre martial arts instructor and still run a pretty successful school because the supply and demand was so different. And people didn't have access. There was a lot of mystique and mystery about martial arts, and the fantasy aspect of it was alive and well. So there's a lot of guys that played off that and preyed upon people that didn't really know what they're doing. Well, that's pretty much all gone. It's so competitive now that you have to be, if someone is running a successful martial arts school, what I mean by that is a school with which, there's a lot of guys that maybe their spouse works and pays the bills and their dad owns the building, and but if you're making a living supporting your family teaching martial arts for an extended period of time, if you've been doing that for more than a decade, you've got to be good or you wouldn't be in business. And what I mean by good is technically probably pretty proficient martial artist, wanting to be there and also understanding the importance of really good service and good quality, because people, kind of like Abe Lincoln said, you can fool some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Well, it's kind of like, and so I think MMA, UFC, and MMA is really made martial arts step up their game, a bit. And I think there's still plenty of room for traditional martial arts. I love traditional martial arts, and a guy that's done like Okinawan karate their whole life. That's what their passion. Hey, there's still plenty of guys that are successful. I see very, very little correlation between the success of a school and the style they teach. There are some general things, like, for example, you don't find as many traditional karate or taekwondo schools that have as much of an adult clientele as they used to. There are exceptions based on the personality of the instructor, but in general, adults seem to be, from my perception, I don't want to make anybody mad that's on here, this is just what I've seen, have gravitated towards more, Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Muay Thai. That's what you see more, right? But anymore also, I think what MMA has done, and we're all way more open-minded about what we teach, and there's only so many ways the elbow bends, right? And at the end of the day, than they are different, and I think there's a way more open-mindedness towards that now than there used to be.
Now, I think there's no question that the martial arts industry has waves and trends, and the tide rolls in and the tide rolls out. And I'm sure you've seen that over your career. What are some of the consistent things that a school can do to remain competitive and differentiate themselves and maintain relevancy in something that has trends that come and go?
Yeah, there's the 5 spirits of Budo. Right, Budo brothers, baby. Or one of them is Shoshin, And roughly translated means beginner's mind. And the comment with that is in the mind of an expert, in the mind of a beginner, there are 1,000 choices. In the mind of an expert, there is but one. And the concept is, you said, in order to stay relevant, you don't have to change with, oh, I guess we're all wearing skirts in class now. Okay, that's what we know. You don't have to change that, but you have to be aware of what's going on in the world and adjust accordingly as far as, pricing and, like rotating curriculum and knowing how to use technology to help you market your school and to better service your students. You have to stay relevant in that. And it's kind of like, in order to be a champion, you have to fight like a challenger. You can't rest on what works. And there's a couple of friends of mine that were top of the food chain in the 90s. Top of the food chain when it comes to running a martial arts school, that no one even knows who they are anymore. They're struggling. And not that it matters if people know who they are. What I'm saying is that they're no longer at the top of the food chain because they didn't change with the times. And now they're struggling for survival because they didn't adjust. So Bryan, any other comments on this subject?
I think it ties in with what we were just talking about the previous question as well, is that idea of the industry has been changing. It's been, there's a lot of evolution that's going on. And so, yes, keeping your eyes open, being aware of what's happening, because there are changes. Sometimes they happen rapidly. But from the trends and the fad standpoints, is those, frankly, I don't think you really even have to pay much attention to those. But it's a matter of just being aware that as the market changes, as people are more aware of what is accessible, right, as far as the type of instruction professionalism that's out there, be aware of that, right? It's harder to hide. It's harder to just be okay and get by because there's so much more accessibility. There's so much more information out there. And you're talking about Tide, right? Is the other piece I would add is staying part of the community. That's how you engage, is to go out and involve and hear from other people and learn from others. Even if you're doing a lot of things right, is keep that beginner's mind, go out and learn from other people. And so the event that we have coming up is our ProMAC International event, or we also call it the Rising Tide. You were talking about the tide rolling in, tide rolling out. Well, the kind of the theme of our event, what our community is built around, is that idea of the rising tide lifts all boats, which is really, we're in this together as an industry. And so the way that you ride those waves is you recognize that we're in this together. And so you get out and you learn, and you don't try and do it all on your own. And so come learn from others. If you want to come to our event, that's great. We'd love to see you. But otherwise, just being out and engaging within that community, because that's how we learn. And what I love, and this was a point that just really rung true for me when we had one of our first events, is we've got some huge names that are going to be there, just like experts, legends in the industry. And so they're up and they're leading classes, they're leading presentations. And then the next hour, they're out on the mat as learning, right? They're learning from somebody that might be decades their junior, but out there having fun and saying, great, what can I learn today? And that's what our event is all about. And that's what I think the community is about. And that's what I think the success secret is for staying relevant and, I guess, riding the waves of this industry.
And I would add one other thing as far as when it comes to being open-minded and receptive, is that I think it's important to understand that you can't swap if it doesn't feel right. Like, oh, I guess everybody's doing this now, I better teach this. If right. What's going to be successful is what in your heart is what you want to share, and you share with passion. So in other words, you're aware of what's going on, you go out there, you're learning and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, what is it that you feel passionate about sharing with your students? And like I happen to, of course, I love a lot of different styles, which is kind of good news, bad news. It gives me a broad base, but it's not as deep as it could be, right? If I trade one thing, but I do a lot of jujitsu, and I think it's, it's only growing. It's only, half the schools in the country now that open up are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools, right? And so it's definitely not going anywhere. But if that's not your thing, that's okay. You don't have to go, I guess I got to do that. That's okay. You can still be successful teaching traditional Taekwondo, what I'm saying, or old school American Kempo. You can still do that if that's your passion. But you still got to be open-minded and passionate and be looking for better ways to present your material and make sure you're not missing things.
And speaking of keeping up with times, how does now social media play into the mix of school owners? How much time do school owners now have to spend on it? As our company, we are literally a social media company. So I wonder what it is like for a school owner to be teaching that, and then also having to worry about these these different tools and tricks and tips and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, well, I'll just touch on. I'll turn over to Bryan because he's more knowledgeable in this area. I think that in the case for me personally, I know if I try to keep on all these different platforms, and I'm on Instagram and I'm on TikTok, right, and I'm on LinkedIn. I have a Twitter account, but I never go there, right? But I spend most of my time on Facebook because that works for me, and I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm taking one thing that I'm really working, but I know we also, to try to stay up on everything that's out there is really rough. So we actually contract out a lot of our material, and we have a couple people on our team that are really relevant with this. But it's super important for the modern school. Bryan?
Absolutely. So yes, it's relevant, right? It's a modern tool. It's a primary platform for engaging with the world, right? So, you're going to have a really tough time. Not that it's impossible, but you're going to have a really tough time being successful if you've completely got your blinders and I just don't do social media. It's not my thing. It's kind of like saying, I don't know, I don't hang an open sign up and let people know that I'm here for classes, right? I'm not going to turn the lights on, right? Is you gotta put a presence out there for sure. As far as how much time, I think that varies a lot. And I mean, some people, like you guys are fantastic examples. You guys crush it, right? I mean, you guys have such an engaging, dynamic presence online. And so, yeah, your time is going to have a higher ROI than maybe somebody who doesn't come to it as naturally. That said, even if it's not your strength, you have to spend some time there. You have to spend at least a few hours a week to check in on it. You have to check it often so that you're paying attention. So if somebody messages you, right, that you're getting back to them quickly and not letting that sit, because otherwise that lead's going to die on the vine, right? You got to follow up with people quickly because social media means instant gratification, right? So people want that quick follow up. And if you're taking multiple days to get back to somebody because they didn't see their message in their Facebook, Instagram, or your direct message on Instagram, they're already gone. They're somewhere else. They scratched their itch and they're training somewhere down the street. That said, again, you don't have to be on all the platforms. So pick the one that's going to be, the one or the two, right? Again, the more savvy you are and the more you enjoy it, great, diversify, right? Be in more places, because again, that's your strength. But if it's not, pick the one or two platforms to kind of have a presence on and kind of own that and stay there and engage. And that's where your content can primarily live. And I think where you make that choice might be a little bit your comfort zone, but probably more is looking at who are you trying to teach? Right, so there's different demographics between Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all the different channels that are going, right? So, I think more and more, right? So Facebook has sort of been the king as far as that's where most school owners are and engaging. We're in the process that's shifting, right? So I might even be dating myself by saying it's in the process of shifting. Other people might say, dude, it shifted a while ago, right? It's Instagram all the way now. But we still see a lot of people who are still thriving with Facebook, right? Is that social media element is working well, but Instagram is definitely where more people are, right? That's where the kind of the primary parents tend to be. That's where the people who are going to populate those jiu-jitsu school, the adults who are looking to train themselves, most of them are probably on Instagram. So if you're just getting into it and you don't know where to start, that's probably where I would recommend a school owner to go, is Instagram as a first choice.
Now, when you're looking at school programming, how important is kids class and youth martial arts in an average school? Is it primary? Is it something that you have to have, or can you run a successful adult-only school?
You absolutely can. I was down at John Whitman, who runs the Krav Alliance school in San Diego a couple weeks back, Los Angeles, excuse me. And, he's got a very small, couple time a week kids class. It's all adults, right? And so you have to, I think it's way harder to do just adults in one sense, in the sense that you have to have the right energy, first and foremost. And then if you're doing just an adult school, I don't know of any, and I could, like I said, they may be out there. I don't know of any like traditional karate or taekwondo schools that are successful that are just adult schools. Right. Mm-hmm. But I do know a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu schools and Muay Thai schools and Krav schools that are primarily adults. They might have a kids program just as an add-on, but their main focus is on the adult program, without a doubt. So that is totally possible. I think what's important to understand is that if you have like a lot of guys, well, I don't really like teaching kids, but I guess that's where the money is. So I'll add a kids program. It's not going to work. You got to like it. You got to like it. Like, for whatever reason, I was just wired back, when I first opened up a school, there was no kids doing martial arts. All of a sudden I had a bunch of kids because I liked it. I saw the benefits of it. And just kind of, it just kind of worked out. I seem to have a somewhat of I don't have a lot of gifts, but one of those I'd be able to relate to kids pretty well. Right. And all of a sudden the kid program blew up, and it's then there's a movie that came out in the middle '80s. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Oh yeah. Karate Kid. Right. It changed everything overnight. And we were positioned for that. So, I think it's easier to have a successful tool with kids if you like kids and you know how to work with them. It's actually way easier to teach adults. You don't need as many for teaching adults. All you need is need passion and knowledge, and you're good. With kids, there's this whole other level of your ability to keep their attention and interact and disguise repetition and all these other things that come into play.
Yeah. And as far as the tools for teaching instructors, all right. So you were asking about it earlier, right? Mr. Kovar has really been the teacher's teacher, right? And helping to kind of codify that approach for teaching kids and making it be a more accessible demographic, because you do have to be a little bit more on top of your game as opposed to just talking to an adult and having a conversation and great, I can teach you. Kids, you have to kind of know those techniques. And so he's been teaching instructors all over the world for years and years and years. And then more recently through the Satori Alliances, we're trying to help pass those tools on to others. And help them to, again, raise the bar, raise the professionalism of the industry that we have.
And it sounds like the environment is so crucial. And I've been in some schools over my journey that the environment starts out great. It's amazing. And then some people get enrolled that have big egos, and then all of a sudden, slowly, the environment starts to change. How do you deal with ego in the dojo and maintain a positive learning environment for everyone?
There's always that issue. I think teaching is more art than science. There's not an exact formula, right? Because you're dealing with people, and we're complicated, right? To me, whenever there's an issue, when somebody maybe isn't fitting in socially, because maybe they're a little bit arrogant, or I look for two things. I look for, when I have the hard talk, or when someone has the hard talk, were they receptive to my input? And did they make an attempt to modify accordingly? Okay. And if someone comes off and they're pretty arrogant and cocky, maybe they're training, maybe they're working, they're too hard on the other students in class, right? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that I clearly didn't explain things to them very well. Right. So, I'm going to maybe have a sit down with them and say, hey, let me talk. You understand kind of how this works, and give you an example. And if they're defensive, like, oh, blah, blah, then they're not a fit. I think it's okay to fire a student. Right. But if they're like, oh, I didn't, so they're receptive, and they do their best to modify, then if they're getting better and it's not a safety issue, then you can come around. I mean, I think a lot of arrogance comes from insecurity. You know what I'm saying? Like, you guys know a bunch of, serious, like, let's take Mike Swain. What an amazing guy. And I've a good friend of mine for 30 years, right? I love that guy. And I've been tossed around by him so many times. It's been great fun, so humbling to move that. But talk about a sincerely nice guy, right? And he didn't have anything to prove. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so the people that have that come with that arrogance, usually it's because they're not very, and as their confidence improves, their sense of self-worth improves, a lot of that often leaves and dissipates. And that's one of the beauty of martial arts. You get the guy that comes in, all macho when he first starts. And the reason is because he actually is scared to death, but he puts on the real assertive, I'm a tough guy. And first off, when that guy comes into school, I try to acknowledge that. Or what I mean by that is not, I go, oh man, what'd you do? Oh, I play football at school. Wow, you look like you were, yeah, I bet you're a great athlete. You're going to be great at this. I try to kind of pad their ego, so to speak, if that makes sense, just to make them feel comfortable. Okay, my guard's down. And then their guard is down. And if they're open and receptive, oftentimes we can take that person and martial arts keeps you humble, because there's a lot of badasses out there, and that don't look like it. And it's hard to train on a regular basis and keep that arrogance, because, you're going to get your rear end handed to you plenty of times in your career, and you're going to realize, okay, maybe I'm not as tough as I was. Maybe I should just shut up and be a better student.
That's very
That
cool.
was a long-winded answer. I hope it made some sense.
Yeah,
Definitely.
The one thing I would maybe add to, just as far as like maintaining the culture of your school, right, is culture. You know, there's a lot to talk about culture. Right? That's one of the things I love is that the team building element, the community element is great. Really, culture will come down to not the values that you put up on a poster on the wall. It's not necessarily the message of the week that you say over and over again. It really comes down to what you tolerate. And so the culture will be defined by, again, what you allow to persist. And so, you know, I'm just talking about having the hard conversation, right? So when you see those things that aren't in line with the culture that you want, do you address it? Right. Or do you allow it to persist? Because if you allow it to persist, if you're like, well, I'm just going to stand back and watch and see if it goes, well, then now you don't have one macho guy. Now he brings his buddy. Right. And then he brings a friend. Right. And now you got a few macho guys. And now the tone and culture of your school starts to shift. And it's because you've tolerated that and you haven't addressed that. Hey, that's not how we do things here. And you don't have to you don't have to deliver a smackdown. Right. Is you address it, you talk to them, and then you see, are they receptive to changing to recognize, hey, this isn't what we tolerate here. And if not, then you can let them go. And if they do, then they get on board. They get on board with, oh, this is the culture here. Because, you know, again, they're probably scared. They're probably like, I don't know how to fit in. So this is how I'm going to be impressive. But if instead what's respected here is humility, if what's respected here is kindness, well, then, I want to get on board with that because that's the culture here. Right. So again, it comes down to, again, what you allow, what you tolerate. So you as a school owner have to drive that for sure.
And that's why I like having Bryan Ney on my team for all that great definition that he just shared.
Now, Dave, you mentioned earlier the 5 pillars of Budo, and you mentioned one. Can you give us the other 4?
I can. So Shoshin, beginner's mind, Zanshin, remaining mind. And the concept with remaining mind is or lingering mind. A good example would be, how many people when they're on a ladder, they're coming off a ladder after, getting leaves off the roof. When do they hurt themselves? It's on the very last step when they let their guard down. So remaining mind means keep that awareness. It's getting gas late in the evening and you're aware of your surroundings. You see the guy leaning in the shadows over in the corner and you're just alert and aware. That's Zanshin. The next one is Fudoshin. And Fudoshin roughly translated means immovable mind. And that's calm during the storm. And that's the picture we've all seen of the guy meditating under the waterfall, right? That's Fudoshin. You think of a fire captain that shows up on the job. There's buildings burning everywhere. There's mayhem everywhere. And this fire captain that's been on the job for decades shows up, takes a breath, calmly just kind of asserts his energy and wisdom, and then everybody calms down. That's Fudoshin, calm under pressure. And the only way to learn to be calm under pressure is to be under pressure and practice being calm. Thus, martial arts so successful. The next one is Mushin. Mushin roughly translated means no mind. And that's being in flow state or being in the zone, or what we call Satori, right? It's like, and the only way you get there is mindful repetition over time. When you do something so well, it just comes out instinctive and natural. And the final one is Zenshin. And Zenshin roughly translated, Zenshin is beginner's mind. Shoshin, I apologize, guys, is enlightened mind. Zenshin, Shoshin, I had it right. I apologize. Zenshin is enlightened mind. And what that means is a spirit of contribution. As you guys know, the word samurai literally translated means to serve. And so the idea of that is that the stuff that I learn, I use is for the benefit of others. So those are the 5 spirits of Budo.
Love it. And we definitely really connect on that point because we have a saying, when you have passion and service, combining those two things, you find your purpose. And when you have your purpose, it's the most powerful thing that you could use to fuel you in order to go out into this world and do good things. And speaking of good things, you guys are throwing an event coming up here, which is sounding like it's going to be something amazing that we're definitely going to be making it to. So could you fill us in about the upcoming event that you're throwing?
Go for it, Mr. A.
Right. I'm excited. Absolutely. And I'm excited you guys are going to be there. Man, I can't wait to see you. It's been way too long. So the event we have coming up, it's going to be May 18th to 20th of this year. It's our ProMAC International Conference. So ProMAC is our professional martial arts community. We've been creating this community of school owners for hunches at 15,
over 20 years, man. We started, I think, in 2004. It took 19 years. Yeah, we started ProMAC.
Nearly 20 years of creating this community. But in 2017, we started bringing all of our community together in a single place instead of hosting our events here or there in smaller groups. So we brought everybody together starting in 2017, and it's an awesome event. It's fun. We have training, we have business sessions, we've got lots of stuff for like beginner staff members as well. So it's not just for school owners, right? Is if you've got your seconds, if you really even got your TNT, your volunteers, people that you want to get more inspired with martial arts, and being part of the school, it's a great event for them too, because it's that rising tide community of coming together, sharing ideas. We're going to have several different breakouts. So whether you're a program director, an instructor, an owner starting off, an owner that's been doing it for several decades, is we've got something for you kind of all the time, so you can be learning and sharing this beautiful community. So again, that's May 18th to 20th. And then it's going to be in Sacramento, California. And we're going to be, you can get more of the details on our website. It's ProMACconference.com. So PROMAC conference.com. We've got like 60 speakers. We've got legends in the martial arts that are going to be there. So Mike Swain, we've been talking about, he's going to be there. We're really blessed. So in addition to Kovar Systems, we have Rev Gear that's helping to put it on. We have Zen Planner. We have Dolomer are some of our key sponsors. And so Mike Swain's going to be there. We have Bill Superfoot Wallace that's going to be there. Paulo Ladra, I think you guys have done some work with him too. John Whitman from the Krav Maga Alliance. So we've got people across all these different styles, all these different walks of life, right? All the different types of success we've been talking about it, whether it's jiu-jitsu, it's Muay Thai, it's Krav Maga, it's traditional martial arts, Taekwondo. We've got experts from all of them that are going to be here sharing ideas, and it's just a ton of fun. And you can see I get really, really excited about it because every time it's like the best possible birthday party you could have. It's all my favorite people getting in one place together, and whether it's the business sessions, exchanging ideas, whether it's getting on the mat, exchanging moves, concepts, teaching elements, it's a beautiful several days because we're sharing ideas. It's that rising tide. The rising tide lifts all boats, and we're getting better as an industry. And I can see that happen during the several days of this event every year. It's great.
Yeah, and we have 5 breakouts going on for the 3 days, and so it can be as martial as you want, or as business as you want, or as teaching as you want, right? So we got the bases covered. With our team, we're making sure, hey, don't just train because our guys just love to train. Yeah. The 3 days, make sure, because we've got these amazing presenters that are going to make us better teachers and make our business sound. So yeah, so really, whatever flavor you want to taste is going to be there. It's going to be great.
Sounds like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to add, so again, excited to have you guys there as well. And we've been talking about the event, but also you guys have done a lot of incredible work with the Budo Brothers Foundation and with Sifu Harinder Singh. And so he's going to be coming too. So he's going to be delivering a keynote session there with us. And one of the things we're also excited about is we've been trying to, like you guys, give back within the community. And so we have launched 501c3, the Satori Foundation. And that's going to be kind of our efforts in trying to help spread martial arts and make it more accessible to those who otherwise can't, and helping primarily our youth who need the values of martial arts, and helping it to reach more, not just in our community, but again, across the country, across the world.
Beautiful.
Love
that
it.
is
amazing. So
near and dear to our hearts, and I can see future collaborations in the yonder for sure.
All right.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. This was absolutely phenomenal. You're a wealth of wisdom, and what I love is you're so open to sharing. And I think this speaks to the rising tide floats all boats. You're not holding on to these nuggets that help only you. You're willing to share it so we can all benefit and learn from it. And I feel like that is part of the essence of Budo. So thank you.
Yes, it's my pleasure, our pleasure to be on the podcast. Appreciate knowing you guys, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much.
Appreciate it. And for anyone who wants to get in touch, what are the best places to get a hold of you? Websites, Instagram handles, you name it.
So for information about the event, where hopefully we get to see you again, that's ProMACconference.com. If you want to learn more about all of the things we can do to help support school owners on an ongoing basis, that's going to be KovarSystems.com, KOVAR systems.com. And that's where you can get involved with our instructor teaching programs and helping to grow either your own skills or the skills of your team, or also getting that mentorship as a martial arts business owner. And then to find Mr. Kovar, he's right now he's doing a lot in speaking. He's been traveling all over the world in the last month or two, getting to speak. And so for those who want to have him come out, Hanshi, best way to reach out to you for that.
Yeah. So a personal message on Facebook, Dave Kovar, or Instagram, Hanshi Dave Kovar, although I don't go there as often as I should. Or my email is dave.kovar@kovars.com. And so there you go.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for tuning in. Until next week, signing off.